Hey everyone, Josh Hayes here for ScoreStreak.com, and today I want to talk about my top 4 fantasy factors when choosing starting pitchers for your DFS lineups. So let's go ahead and start off here with weather, and this may sound like it's something obvious. You're like, hey Josh, I already know. I got to check the weather report to make sure it's not raining before to start a particular pitcher. Well, it goes in a little bit deeper than that, and what you need to do is to go to Twitter and follow Kevin Rothwx. He's a meteorologist from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I believe, and he posts weather reports that are detailed daily, specifically for DFS, and will break down individual games and matchups, and not just talk about the precipitation, but whether or not they think that game is going to be delayed, whether or not he would still play those hitters and pitchers, and it just gives you a much better number rather than looking at the Weather Channel or some basic precipitation projection or report on various other sites. So you get a very detailed answer. He answers questions on Twitter, he answers questions in the forums, and he posts a link to the thread in the forums for you to get all your weather-related questions in for right before lineup lock. So he's always very timely as when he posts these, pays attention to when the information needs to be out before lineup lock for day game slates and for evening slates. So obviously a #1 top follow. If you're playing DFS, a must follow for sure. Kevin Roth WX. So make sure you check him out. The second thing we need to take a look at here is the betting line and the total. You need to combine these two things to find out who is going to be the biggest favorite on the day. That's going to generally lead you into the proper direction as to which are the top pitchers for the day. So you're looking for the biggest favorite in terms of the betting line, and you're looking for the lowest total to combine those two. Now you're going to have a couple of close options generally, and if I'm looking to break ties, I want to break ties with a home pitcher versus an away pitcher, if at all possible, and a National League pitcher versus American League pitcher, because that National League pitcher will obviously get to face the opposing pitcher in the batter's box, and that's always a good potential for a strikeout or an easy out. If you are still very close and you still haven't narrowed it down between a couple of those options, then I usually try to lean towards the pitchers in very good ballparks here. Pitchers ballparks like Petco and Dodger Stadium are always pitchers that you can target and get some good value. For instance, Mike Bolsinger, Frias, Brett Anderson are all pitchers who are generally low owned in terms of, or they have a lower salary when talking about sites like FanDuel and DraftKings and are sneaky value plays. And if you're looking to sneak them in a good matchup, you can probably slot one of those guys for 6 strikeouts here on ScoreStreak, and it'll be a little bit of a contrarian play because they're not the big name pitcher. They're not Kershaw or James Shields or Max Scherzer. So those are one of the sneaky plays I like to use when taking a look at some of the factors that'll make them a good favorite. And the other thing that you also want when you're breaking ties here between the betting line and the low totals here is a good offense, which those 3 guys, Bolsinger, Frias, and Brett Anderson also fit because they play for the LA Dodgers, who are loaded with offense. Same thing with the Washington Nationals. I think you can actually maybe even consider the Padres in that category too, with all the moves that they've made. So when trying to break those ties, make sure you take all those extra factors into account to make sure you get the right pitchers into your DFS lineup. So the last 2 things we need to talk about here are advanced stats. And the first advanced stat that we want to mention here is weighted on base average. Now this is usually an opponent stat for your pitcher here, and what it gives you is a good gauge of how much success the opposing batters are having against a right-handed pitcher or a left-handed pitcher. So it'll give you a much larger sample than BVP. So for reference, about 320, I guess, is close to league average for WOBA. And so if you see a pitcher who's got a WOBA against righties in the 350s or more, that means it's a bad matchup for him hitters-wise, and you probably actually want the hitters to target in your DFS lineups, not that pitcher. When you see a pitcher getting in the low 3s or maybe 290 or below 300, that's a pitcher who has a great matchup WOBA-wise and is somebody that you should definitely target to probably have a good amount of success and keep the run total down, get a ton of outs against that matchup. So the opponent's WOBA for pitchers will lead you into the right direction. And then the last thing you also want to take advantage of looking at here is the strikeout percentage. And anything above 22% is considered elite. So obviously strikeouts are the key to a lot of DFS success whenever you're talking about pitchers. And anytime you see something in the above 22% range for the strikeout percentage, that means you can expect a good number of strikeouts, and that's going to help you out a ton, especially on sites like DraftKings where you want to rack up the strikeouts, and for sure on ScoreStreak where you're trying to pinpoint and pick out exactly who you need for 9 strikeouts, 7 strikeouts, and 6 strikeouts. That strikeout percentage, you could sort of sort that in order. All those stats are available on Roto-Grinders, and you can sort of figure out who's going to have the most amount of success and then slot those strikeout pitchers accordingly. That's going to do it for today's video. Don't forget to give ScoreStreak a follow on Twitter at ScoreStreaker. 3 daily free rolls going on. Big $300 free roll each and every Friday, and they still got the 100% deposit bonus up to $500. If you have any questions, you can also reach me on Twitter at RotoBaseballPod. Good luck in all your daily fantasy matchups, everybody.